Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you're all doing well. Happy Friday. It's very, very windy here in Northern England. So if my internet drops, well, it's probably something to do with the wind. It's also very dark. I think it's going to rain really bad. But it's actually quite warm. So every cloud has a silver lining. All right. So we're going to hear... Can't even speak. All right. We're going to talk about the Delphi case today. And we're going to talk about Ron Logan again. We're going to talk about the fake alibi. We're going to talk about the geofencing. What was it in that geofence that the state tried to hide? Why did they get their own geofencing banned from the trial? That's always puzzled me. Why did they not want geofencing at the trial? Was there something in there that they wanted to hide? Or was it simply that Rick Allen's phone wasn't in the geofence? It could be as simple as that. Rick Allen's phone wasn't there at the time when the state said Abby and Libby were murdered. Is it as simple as that? Is it really that obvious? It could well be. Because Nick McClelland, he does kind of obvious things. He's not a very complicated guy, is he? Really. But anyway, thank you so much, Krista. You are so generous. Before the live even started, we've got a $49.99 super chat. Thank you so much. You're so kind. All right, while we're in the chat, though, let's say a couple of hellos before we get into it. We've got Ozzy TV, we've got Angela, I'm going to have a go at saying your name. I'm going to say it's Bria. Am I close? Am I even close? We've got M. Osland, BGOG, we've got Paper Chaser, Mike. We've got CW. We've got... Who else have we got? Susan. You have to miss this one. Watch it on the replay. Oh, it's half term for you. Oh, no. Oh, no. Half term. Gone are my days of having to battle through half terms. And I'm glad about it as well. Oh dear. Journey takes a trip. Been doing deep cleaning. Oh, I need to do that. I do that every once in a while, and I feel much better for it. But it takes me a long time. Never do today what you can put off till tomorrow. That's my motto through life, and it's served me well. Hello, Amy Lou. We've got We Are Dust. We've got Tracy. We've got Deputy Dog. Angie Baby. We've got one more person. We've got Spike Allen. I'm not a cat. I'm not a cat. That's great. All right. All right. Hope you're all well. Okay, without further ado, let's get into this. So on Court TV last night was Vinnie Politan Investigates. He's into the Delphi case at the moment, is Vinnie. He's been following this case very closely, but he is contemplating the possibility that Rick Allen might actually be innocent. He's contemplating it. And semi-regularly, he does a show on Delphi. There's so much to talk about. This thing has been going on for over 8 years. You would think that as a trial has been and gone, and there is a man who has got 130 years in prison, you would think all of the furore would have died down. If they got the right guy, you'd think, look, it's all going to die down. But there's so many unanswered questions here. And it's becoming more and more and more obvious to people who never even thought about it before. This is why I'm constantly bringing up the older stuff, reminding people about previous filings, reminding people about the decisions that were made in the pre-trial parts of this case, because it's the stuff that people tend to tune out. You know, I've been talking about filing after filing after filing, and as have quite a few people, but a lot of people just tune it out. So we're getting new people all the time who are contemplating the possibility that Rick Allen might be innocent, factually innocent. Legally, now guilty, a convicted man, but factually innocent. It just all makes you think. And the latest we've had is Reese Davis. Reese Davis, the guy who shared a pod with Ron Logan back in 2017, and just 3 months before, after the murders, Ron Logan told Reese Davis that he committed the murders. Reese Davis was that concerned, he called in a tip to the tip line. He was interviewed by cops, but nothing was done about it. Nothing was done about it, except the FBI. The FBI, even before Reese Davis. This, we're going to read a little bit of this today. This is the Ron Logan search warrant from March 2017, written by a special agent from the FBI. And they were very, very interested in Ron Logan. Ron Logan put himself there, except he lied, put himself there because he lives there. However, he said at the time of the murders, he wasn't there. He was in Lafayette, half an hour drive away, buying fish. But we know it was a lie. We know that was a lie. We've also had Reese Davis coming out saying that he sent 8 letters to Nick McClelland. He was that concerned. But Nick McClelland is refusing. If you saw my videos from yesterday, I did a recorded video in the morning. I did a little 4-minute edition later on in the day based on a new filing that had come out. And Nick McClelland is not responding. Nick McClelland is mysteriously silent on whether or not it's true that Reese Davis sent Nick McClelland 8 letters. I'm not going to hold him to 8. He thinks it's about 8. Could be 6, could be 7, could be 9. But we're thinking about 8 regarding Rick Allen, Ron Logan, Kegan Kline. Reese believes that the 2 other people that Ron Logan told him were involved. Yeah, look, he said that Ron Logan told him that 2 other people were involved in the murders, but didn't say who they were. And Reese now believes it's maybe Kegan Kline is involved. He's spoken to Kegan. He's got this. He's in this unusual position that he's now, or at least up until very recently, he was sharing a pod with Kegan Kline. Kegan Kline's also been a person of interest in this case. He was behind the Anthony Shots profile. You know all this if you're a Delphi aficionado. He was behind the Anthony Shots profile that was talking to Libby in the days before her murder. He's now in prison for 40 years for child exploitation, child porn charges, CSAM charges. Look, he's there for 40 years. He's been talking to Reese. He seems concerned, according to Reese, that Ron Logan might have brought his name up. However, to a YouTuber, Tom Webster, talked about this yesterday, showed the screenshot from Tom Webster's community tab that Kegan Kline told Tom Webster that he didn't know Ron Logan. He's told Barbara McDonald, reporter Barbara McDonald, that he didn't know Ron Logan. So is Kegan Kline lying yet again? Is Reese lying? Reese could be lying. We don't know. We don't know because Nick McClelland is hiding those letters. Nick McClelland is not talking about those letters. We don't have a fair assessment. But what I do believe Reese is telling the truth in that he's reciting what he's been told. So if Ron Logan lied, how would you know details that we now know are factual about that crime scene? How would Ron Logan know those things back in May 2017? But I have more of a question mark over Kegan Kline. I feel Kegan Kline is just lying to everybody, as he always has. Yeah, those letters are probably long gone. They probably are. Burn after reading. Burn after reading. That's Nick McClelland's motto. Here's another Roberta Laundrie. Sidebar. Unrelated. Sidebar. Has anybody watched the Netflix on Gabby Petito? There's a new 3-part little series, mini-series on Netflix. It hit the decks here in the UK a couple of days ago. I watched it yesterday. It's incredibly sad. There's some little details in there that I didn't know. Incredibly sad. They went through all the timeline, and yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed it, but incredibly sad. Incredibly sad. Her family, the way that Roberta and Chris Laundrie, like they had the police body cam there of when they, the cops went to the door. And come on now, the dirty Laundries, they knew all those phone calls between Brian Laundrie and these parents, getting an attorney. Oh, come on now. They knew. Oh, come on now. All right, back to Delphi. Yeah, they're absolute pieces of complete trash. I hope karma. I don't want to wish anybody dead. Don't get me wrong. I'm not wishing anybody dead. But karma is a bitch. When karma hits your life, I believe I've been a victim of karma at least once in my life. So I'm very, very careful now about the way that I treat people, because karma is a bitch. So Roberta, Chris, I don't know. I kind of feel that some karma is heading their way. I don't want them dead or anything like that, but yeah, pretty bad. All right. Okay, back to this. So I'm not going to play all of this. I don't think I put it in the description box either, but I will after. This is the link to those who want to just go and watch this without any commentary from me. I'm sure some of you will have seen this already. I'm just going to play one section of it. Where was Ron Logan on the day of the murders? Where was he? It's interesting this because they played some clips between Ron Logan and Barbara MacDonald. Barbara MacDonald, incidentally, spoke to Ron Logan before he died, but for about 4 months, she was in regular contact with Ron Logan. She's got a lot of recordings of Ron Logan, and she's always believed that Ron Logan wasn't telling the truth. She's always believed that. And I'm a kind of recent convert to the Ron Logan could possibly have done it. Yeah, I never thought Ron Logan. I thought he probably knows something. He probably knows something that he's not telling. But I've never put him down to be the actual killer. And now I'm thinking maybe there's a chance it was. All right, so we're going to play it here. This is one of Vinnie's questions. Where was Ron Logan on the day of the murders? Along with Barbara MacDonald here as a guest, they also had on Bob from Defence Diaries. I'm not sure it's Bob's bit that we're going to play. No, it's not Bob's bit that we're going to play. But they also had one of the investigators on who assisted the defence throughout the pre-trial and trial of Richard Allen. So she's got a lot of information that, you know, she's now able to come out with because of the gag order being lifted. All right, so let's start us here. I'm going to stop it. Again, I'm only going to play a few minutes, but I'm going to stop it and bring in some of the filings here. I'm going to use this as a little springboard into some filings. Defense trying their best to find that nexus, as Judge Gold liked to call it. You know, the third-party suspects that they weren't allowed to bring up at trial, the geofencing that they weren't allowed to bring up at trial. There was no nexus between all of these people, except there was a massive nexus, huge red flags. But Judge Gold said, no, you can't talk about these third-party suspects because their DNA wasn't at the scene. Well, guess who else's DNA wasn't at the scene? Guess who else's? Richard Allen's. Anyhow.
Where was Ronald Logan on the day of the murders? Pretty important, right? Joining me here in studio, Court TV senior producer. She's an expert on the case, has covered it from the beginning, done extensive interviews, including what you just heard, Barbara McDonald, and private investigator who is close to Richard Allen's family, the convicted killer here, and founder of Victim News Online, Erica Morse. Okay, Barbara, do you know anything else about where Ron Logan was that day?
So he claims that he was at the fish store while Abby and Libby were being murdered. Earlier that morning, he had driven himself to the local refuse station to throw away big green trash bags that he said was his household trash from his home that animals had gotten into the night before. And so he spent the morning of the 13th bagging up all of this trash that animals, he says, had strewn about his property. He was very, very angry. Here's some pictures from the surveillance camera at that refuse center where he drove and was able to dump these bags of trash.
All right, so this was the morning of the 13th. So some people are confusing this and saying Ron Logan was there dumping his trash because he'd murdered Abby and Libby, and you know he was dumping evidence, his clothes, the word murder weapon, etc., etc. No, that's wrong. Let's be clear. This was the morning of the 13th. So Abby and Libby were perfectly safe on the morning of the 13th. They only got to the trails around about 10 to 2 in the afternoon. So Ron Logan's here that morning dumping his trash. It's not relevant to the murders themselves, except to say that Ron Logan was driving that day because he's not allowed to drive. That was one of his probation violations. He went back to prison in March of 2017 for probation violation because he was a serial traffic offender. He had DUIs and they banned him from driving. As part of his probation, he was banned from driving, yet he was driving. Okay. So on that morning, he was on camera. And the Ron Logan search warrant actually tells us the time. Here we go. So law enforcement officers learned that Logan had driven on February 13th to the transfer station in Delphi, Indiana to drop off trash. Video from the transfer station shows Logan driving his white Ford pickup truck between 11:27 and 11:32. The video from the transfer station appears to be off by 26 minutes, putting Logan at the transfer station from approximately 11:53 to 11:58. And I can't remember which YouTube channel it is, or else I'd show you the footage. I can't remember whose channel it is, but it is on YouTube. This 5-minute clip of Ron Logan throwing trash into this big dumpster. Thank you, Joanne, for the £20. That's very kind of you. in my own currency as well. And a little bird, it looks like Tweety Pie. Thank you so much. You're very kind. And one thing that struck me from that surveillance video was how fit Ron Logan was. Right, there was these big trash bags. Can't really get a good glimpse here. But, you know, the decent-sized trash bags, just household trash, all of that stuff, in, and he's flinging them off the back of his truck into the dumpster. He's 77 years old at the time of the murders. Ron Logan was 77 years old. So one of the reasons why a lot of people, including some law enforcement, thought that Ron Logan could not have done these murders is because he's 77. He's an elderly man. But this man is fit. He's fit for his age, right? So he's flinging these bags in, you know, 5 minutes, heavy workout. Absolutely fine. No problems. He could get up and down those hills on his property. Remember, Abby and Libby were found down by the banks of the creek on Ron Logan's property. And he was sprinting, not quite sprinting, but walking very well up and down those hills, showing people around. In the days after the murders, he was taking reporters to the crime scene. He was up that hill, down that hill. He's a fit guy, right? Up until him going back to prison in 2017 for probation violation. He had horses. He was a horse rider. He was fit. He was a fit guy, all right, for his age. Okay, so it was around just before noon. He finished doing this, drove back home. So he'd be back home shortly after 12, right? This transfer station, this dump is in Delphi. So it's only a few minutes drive from his house. So he's back shortly after 12. Now, where was his phone at the time when the girls were on the bridge? Where was Ron Logan's phone? Well, I'll tell you where his phone was. According to the FBI, his phone was in the vicinity of the bridge. Where is it? Hold on. Where's the bit about his phone? I had it on the bit about his phone earlier. There we go. I'll tell you where Ron Logan's phone was. It was near the bridge. Not in Lafayette. No, not in Lafayette, the aquarium store. What was he wearing in the dump trash video? Same as BG? No, not exactly the same. No, I can't remember exactly. I wish I could remember whose YouTube channel it was. Let me just see if I can find it. That's it. There we go. There we go. Hold on. Share. So this is the Inquisitor True Crime. Might not be the only person who's got this on their channel. So here he is backing in. Quite a few bags there. Then we switch to the camera inside. So he does have Like the camera lens, it looks like it's dirty, so it's not entirely clear. It looks like maybe a grey jacket rather than a blue one. And high top boots. And then maybe blue trouser. I don't know whether they're jeans or not. So similar, but not exactly the same. Then again, we don't really know what bridge guy was wearing, because the bridge guy video was enhanced. So we can tell that bridge guy's wearing blue jeans. I think we can all see the blue jeans, but the exact colour of the jacket, I'm not sure about, because it's been enhanced. So you can see he's having no problems here throwing this trash into this dumpster. So for a 77-year-old man, you know, he's not unfit, is he? He's obviously been saving that up. Anyhow, there you go. So that's the Inquisitor True Crime. There might be other people who've got it as well. I came upon it accidentally, I think, one day. But fit guy, he's always been fit. So his age not bothering him. Okay. All right. So the morning of the 13th, that's where Ron Logan was. Got home shortly after 12. The girls got to the trails around 10 to 2. Kelsey's car was seen on the Hoosier Harvest Store camera at 1:49, driving away. And then the BG video, we've all come to know, was between 2:13 and 2:14. And that looks like Libby was on the south end of the bridge. And guess whose phone was right there? A call placed using Logan's cell phone produced cell tower data that shows Logan's cell phone appears to be in or around his property on February 13th at 2:09. Although his exact location cannot be confirmed, the tower data shows that Logan's cell phone was in the Delphi area, in the area of the Monon High Bridge Trail. So it could well be this is cell tower data. Cell tower data is not exact. It doesn't say that Ron Logan was on the bridge. You know, it's not GPS data. GPS data is, yes, it can be out, but it's more exact than cell tower data. This is cell tower data. So it could be that Ron was in his house or in his yard rather than on the bridge. But what it does show us is that Ron Logan was at home. He was at home. He wasn't in Lafayette buying fish. He did go there, but not yet. Not yet. Not yet. I've got a question here. Can you clear something for me? Was there a video or photo of BG directly behind Abby? Was it actual or enhanced? All we have is literally a 2-second clip. Like it's just a few frames of BG put together. We don't know how far away BG was, because what we've seen released is a highly zoomed in, a highly enhanced couple of seconds. So we don't know whether BG was right the way, like, where did the video start? All right. So we know that the video was 43 seconds long. We've seen perhaps 2 seconds of it. So at what point did Libby start filming? Did she start filming because BG was coming up to them, like moving fast, and she was concerned? Or was she just filming anyway and BG's in the background? We don't know the answer to that. And then how fast did BG get to them? We don't know whether the voice, guys down the hill, is the same guy. We don't know that even. We don't know. We don't know because we haven't seen the 43-second clip. The media, if you saw my video yesterday, the media, or one media station that's linked to Dateline, want the 43-second video. And Judge Gull has told them no, they can't have it. So why? Surely the discovery is now public documents. Why can we not have them? Why are they not releasing these things? Once the trial's over, don't discovery materials become public documents, don't they? I always thought they did. Okay, back to this. So we know where Ron was. We know where Ron was in the morning, and we know he lied about his alibi in the afternoon. He lied about his alibi in the afternoon.
Now, he only sought the alibi from his cousin for the trip to the fish store. So he wasn't trying to hide the fact that he was driving, because he had driven there. He had talked to employees at the refuse station, so they knew that he was there that day. And yeah, so that's what he was doing that morning. And then in the afternoon, he has always said that at the exact moment Abby and Libby were being murdered, he was in Lafayette. That cannot be proven. There was no surveillance video at that fish store. And so nobody knows exactly what time he got there. His receipt for his fish purchase was at 5:21 p.m. For his alibi to be correct, he would have needed to arrive 3 hours prior to that. And it's a very small fish store. I doubt he was there for 3 hours.
There's not that many fish in the sea.
There's not.
There's not that many fish in the sea. So he did go to the fish store in Lafayette. Lafayette's about half an hour drive away from Delphi. He did go there. And the FBI found a receipt for the purchases he made at the aquarium store, and that Barbara's right that in the Ron Logan search warrant it does give the time from the receipt, if I could find it. Maybe I don't really need to find it, but it's in here. It's in this document that he checked out at the aquarium store at 5:21. So he told everybody, including the news, he told everybody that he was in Lafayette at the time the girls were murdered. Well, as they point out in this program at some point, how did Ron Logan know what time the girls were murdered? We still don't know what time the girls were murdered. Nick McClellan thinks he knows. Nick McClellan thinks that they were dead before 2:32 because Libby's phone stopped moving at 2:32, and that was underneath Abby's body. So the girls had to have been murdered before 2:32. But Ron Logan, right, even before the girls were even found, has created a fake alibi. On the morning of the 14th, so this is before the girls were found, Ron Logan rang his cousin and said to his cousin, please say you were with me yesterday afternoon and that we went to Lafayette to the aquarium shop. And his cousin originally lied for him. And then his cousin got scared and admitted to the cops. It's all in the search warrant. It's all in here. I have read all of this on a previous live stream. I've read all of it. And the cousin admitted that he lied. The cousin admitted he lied. Here we go. A receipt from Aquarium World in Lafayette, dated February 13th, with a checkout time of 5:21, found in Logan's home on March the 6th during a probation violation search. Logan resides approximately 22 miles from the store. It takes approximately 30 minutes to get to the store. On March the 6th, during an interview, Logan said he was picked up by his cousin around 3 p.m. and taken straight to the aquarium store in Lafayette. On March the 6th interview, Logan said he was done in the aquarium store. He was driven straight home. These statements were found to be factually false and intentionally designed to deceive law enforcement. On March the 7th, cousin was interviewed. Cousin told law enforcement he was with Logan on Monday, February 13th, and that cousin drove Logan to the aquarium store in Lafayette. However, on March the 9th, cousin was interviewed by another law enforcement regarding the trip to the aquarium. Cousin told law enforcement he had lied when he was interviewed on March the 7th at Logan's request. Cousin explained that Logan had never asked cousin to lie for him in the past. Cousin knows that Logan had driven his vehicle while on probation and is prohibited from doing so. Cousin also said Logan did not ask him to lie for him when Logan drove to the transfer station. So it was just that trip that he asked the cousin to lie for him. So he lied about the time that he was there. And the cousin admitted that on February 14th, so before the girls were even found, Logan had rung him and asked him to provide him with a fake alibi. And we know from Ron Logan's phone that he was in the area of his house at 2:09. And at exactly the time when the girls were there on the bridge. Has anybody ever seen Ron's cousin? No, I haven't. However, I don't think I've even looked. Well, that sounds mighty fishy, doesn't it? Doesn't it just? And he also lied. He also lied about his whereabouts on the evening of the 13th. He told Barbara McDonald that he was indoors all night. He wasn't. No, he wasn't. He was outside. He was outside at least twice. At least twice. We go back to the FBI's phone dump here. So, an analysis of Logan's cell phone data revealed a text message sent from his phone at 7:56. Initial exam of this analysis indicates Logan's phone was likely outside of his residence and in the proximity of where Libby and Abby's bodies were located. He told Barbara McDonald he was indoors all night, knew there was a search going on for 2 missing girls, didn't partake in the search. He was happy to show people around once the girls were found. He was happy to have his 15 minutes of fame being interviewed by reporter after reporter. But when the search was actually on, where was Ron Logan? Was he helping people around trying to find these girls? No, he was indoors all night, according to him, because he needed to sort his fish out. But no. Then an analysis of Logan's cell phone revealed a text message received by his phone at 10:16. Initial exam of this analysis indicates Logan's phone was likely outside of his residence and in the proximity of where Libby and Abby's bodies were located. So 7:56 and 10:16 p.m. he's in the vicinity of the crime scene, but not partaking in the search. Told everyone he was indoors all night. Well, he wasn't.
Not that many fish.
Okay, Erica Morse, in any other investigation, if you had victims that are found on this man's property, he's lying about the alibi, and there's video of him the next morning throwing away bags of something. Oh my goodness, we'd be jumping up and down and screaming. What are your thoughts about where Ron Logan was on the day of the murders?
We know from cell phone data that Ron was on his property on that morning. Barb is right. He made that transfer station run. Now, it's interesting because I believe his ex-girlfriend disputes what he may have been throwing away at that transfer station that day. She claims it was her belongings. But let's also establish.
Oh, there's young Ron. Look at him. Look at him when he was young. He looks like Magnum. What's his real name? You know, Magnum PI. Tom Selleck? Tom Selleck, is it? He looks like a slightly heavier version of Magnum. Doesn't he? Maybe it's the Tash. Tom Selleck, thank you. Just a slightly heavier set version of him. Do you not think? I think it's the Tash. But whatever he was throwing away on the morning of the 13th, he was throwing away quite a bit of trash on the morning of the 13th. So not related to the murders, but it does show us that he was a fit guy. And then he lied about his alibi in the afternoon. But we know from his phone ping data that he was in the vicinity of his property in the area of the Modern High Bridge at 2:09. At 2:09, at the exact time the girls were on the bridge. He was not in Lafayette. He wasn't on his way to the aquarium store at that time. He was still there on his property. We know that he did check out. We know that he went to Lafayette, or at least somebody went to Lafayette. I mean, we don't even know whether Ron actually went there because there's no surveillance cameras at the aquarium store. But the receipt in his house for $5.21. So he did buy, he bought fish. Now, did he send somebody to buy the fish? I don't know. We don't know the answer to that. We'll probably never know the answer to that. We'll probably never know the answer to that. Someone stated Ron Logan's nose bled on one of the girls. Yes, I did. I stated that. Because according to Reese Davis, Libby hit Ron Logan in the nose. And he was concerned that blood was on his clothes, so he burnt his clothes. That's what he told Reese Davis. He burnt his clothes. And maybe that's why some of the girls' clothes were in the creek, because he thought there might be his blood on them. Now, why he wouldn't just take their clothes and burn them as well, I have no idea. But I don't know. But why is it that Nick McClelland is protecting Ron Logan? Why is that? We know that Nick McClelland, once he took office, and if you saw my live stream from a few days ago, I showed you the screenshots. Nick McClelland was made prosecuting attorney in December 2nd of 2017. So Ron Logan was in prison at the time for his probation violation. And then 1 month later, in January of 2018, Ron Logan was taken out of prison and allowed to serve his sentence at home. He was allowed to serve his sentence at home just 1 month later. So there's at least one thing that Reese Davis said that is true. That Nick McClelland looked after Ron Logan. I don't know. It's very suspicious. Nick McClelland is protecting someone. I'm convinced of it.
What Ron Logan is saying here that might be tripping himself up. First of all, I'm curious how Ron Logan could know the exact time of death when there was no time of death determined in this case.
Exactly. How did he know that he needed an alibi for the afternoon of the 13th when the girls weren't even found yet? How did he know that he needed the alibi for that time, that exact time? Why did he lie about that?
So that really...
Because when, I used to think, well, he lied about the alibi because he was driving. He wanted to make sure that he was away from the property because he thought, oh, they'll pin it on me. And he got nervous. He got nervous because he was on shaky ground anyway. And he just panicked. But I don't know. Why the confession? and the fact that in May of 2017, Reese Davis knew details about the crime that only the killer would know. And we know now that the details that Reese Davis was told are accurate based on what we know now about the crime scene. So how would Reese Davis know that to send in a tip if indeed Ron Logan was just spouting nonsense? Because Reese Davis was in prison. So he had limited access to the outside world, didn't know anything about the murders until Ron Logan comes along and starts confessing to him. So we know now that what Ron Logan told Reese Davis in May of 2017 is factually accurate based on how the girls died. The fact that Libby had an artery cut in her neck. But Abby died differently. How did he know that? Using a box cutter. Ironic. Absolutely ironic. How did he know that? That for me puts this, this line about an alibi, about his phone being in the proximity of the crime scene. It gives me bad vibes. It puts all of these things into a very different light. A very different light.
He stuck out to me. Ron said that he got to the aquarium store around 3 o'clock, but then he backed up in the alibi request from his cousin, asked him to back that up an hour. As Barb said, it's only about a 20 to 30 minute drive to that aquarium store, so there's about 3 hours.
Box cutter info was on Reddit. Yeah, it was. But how would Reese Davis know? In May of 2017, just 3 months after the murders, how would Reese Davis know that a box cutter was used in the murders if Ron Logan hadn't told him? How did Ron Logan know that a box cutter was used in the murders? At that time, no one was talking about a box cutter. No one was talking about a box cutter at that time. Guards told him. So in May of 2017, guards told Reese Davis to say that a box cutter was used in the murders. How would they, why would they do that? And how did Ron Logan know that Libby had an artery slit, whereas Abby's was more of a slow bleed? How would Ron Logan know that? Because the autopsy details weren't released. So how would he know? How would he know that? Exactly. Box cutter wasn't on Reddit until after the 3-day hearing when Holman first mentioned it. Yes. Core still maintained it was 2 different blades at that time. You are right, Alan. You are absolutely right. The box cutter came into the picture at the 3-day hearing when Monica Waller introduced it, saying that Rick Allen had told her that he used a box cutter. And then the medical examiner, who originally said that 2 different blades were used, sideswiped the defense at the trial by saying that he now thinks that the murder weapon was a box cutter. So yes, this stuff was on Reddit, but it's only been on Reddit in the last year or so, if that. That's 3 months. Not in 2017. Not in 2017. So the use of the box cutter, to mention that in 2017, is probably one of the most suspicious things. That and the way that the girls actually died, the public did not know those things back in May of 2017. So yeah, how would the guards know these things in May of 2017? They wouldn't. Like when Monica Waller at the 3-day hearing brought up the thing about Richard Allen confessed that he used a box cutter, we were like, box cutter? What on earth? Why would you even bring up a box cutter? But at the same time, why would Ron Logan have brought up a box cutter in May of 2017? Why? Why would Ron Logan bring up a box cutter? Exactly. Even the medical examiner didn't know about the box cutter in 2017. Exactly. The medical examiner supposedly had this eureka moment in his workshop one day when he looked down and he saw a box cutter and he thought, that's what killed the girls, and decided to change his testimony. That instead of 2 separate blades, like one with a serrated edge and one with a straight edge, instead he decided that it was a box cutter. When did Reese give his statement? May 2017. May the 15th of 2017. That's the date of the tip in Orion. So the Orion database, that's the date of Reese Davis's tip in Orion, the state's own database. May 15th, 2017. And then on June 21st, 2017, so a month later, Reese was interviewed by law enforcement and told them the same thing. So there is a tip in Orion from May 15th, 2017, and there is an interview, a police interview that no one's seen, even the Rick Allen's defense, with law enforcement in June of 2017. These things are dated. These things are there in the discovery based on the state's own database and the state's own interviews. Yes, exactly, Alan. Even in the opener at the trial, defense was saying, Nick will tell you that it was a box cutter, but the medical examiner will tell you it's 2 different blades. And then the medical examiner sideswiped the defense completely by saying that he believes the murder weapon was a box cutter, which made Rick Allen look even more guilty. But actually, a box cutter had been introduced into this case in May of 2017 in Reese Davis's tip. Are we here on your channel the only ones looking at this? Oh, no. There's quite a few channels that are talking about this. But I'm going to carry on. I'm going to carry on because more people are coming in now. More people are prepared to listen. There's people who just thought, not interested in the pre-trial stuff, not interested in all of those court filings. You miss such a lot. You miss such a lot when you kind of just, I don't know, sidestep all of that stuff. Like, there's a lot of interesting stuff coming out in the Coburg case at the moment from court filings that I do mean to talk about at some point. But this case keeps me absolutely hooked. So anytime I think about talking about another case, I end up coming back here. Although I did Karen Reid the other day. I was good and gave Delphi a rest and taught Karen Reid. So one day I'll give Delphi a rest and talk about Coburger. But there's loads of interesting stuff coming out, and the pre-trial stuff is absolutely fascinating. Yes, it can be dry, like reading through, you know, court filings, but it's fascinating what the arguments are as to what ends up being seen by the jury, which ends up, you know, part of the public record at trial, when actually there's stuff that's decided pre-trial that gives you, you know, pause. Like in this case, Delphi, the stuff that the defense weren't allowed to talk about, which I'm going to come on to in a moment, is incredibly suspicious. As we build up this information, that, you know, Ron Logan knew stuff about that crime scene in May of 2017 that only the killer would know. And yet it's being completely ignored. Completely ignored. So you've got to just keep plugging it and keep saying, no, look, these are facts. These are facts that have been known a long time. Take a look at this. And hopefully more people will start to listen.
3.5 to 4 hours unaccounted for, roughly. But my issue remains that consciousness of guilt, needing an alibi before anyone necessarily knew an alibi was needed, and claiming to know from his perspective when the girls were murdered, because none of us know that. For some reason, he does.
And Barbara, getting back to what you said, I want to make sure this doesn't go under the radar on this program about he claimed that he wanted that alibi because he wanted to say that his cousin was driving because he didn't have a license. But like you said, he's speaking to people at the refugee center and is driving and is on surveillance video.
No alibi for that. No lies about that.
But didn't ask him to lie about that. That does not make sense. One other thing I want to put up on the screen, this is from the Ron Logan probable cause affidavit. An analysis of Logan's cell phone data revealed a text message received by his phone at 10:16 p.m. on February 13th, 2017. Initial examination of his analysis indicates Logan's phone was likely outside of his residence and in the proximity of where Liberty and Abby's bodies were located.
All right, so that's the paragraph that we just read from the Ron Logan search warrant. This one, analysis of Logan's cell phone revealed a text message. 10:16 puts him in proximity of where Libby and Abby's bodies were located. But there was also a text message at 7:56 p.m. that was the same, puts him in proximity of where the girls' bodies were located, even though he told everyone he was indoors the whole night and he didn't participate in the search. But yet, the text messages at 7:56 and 10:16 put him in proximity of that crime scene. So, you know, he could come along and say, well, he can't because he's dead, but he could have come along and said, well, I was out searching. Well, why did you tell everyone you were indoors all night looking after your fish? Because there'd be no shame in saying that you were out searching, because everybody in the town was out searching for the girls. So, you know, if Ron Logan's phone was in the vicinity of the crime scene, it wouldn't be anything to even question if he'd have been out there searching. But no, he wasn't out there searching. He told everybody he was indoors. So why then is his phone in the proximity of the crime scene? I don't know. And then 2:09, when he's supposedly on his way to the fish store, his phone is in the vicinity of his property, close to the Monon High Bridge. How does this work? Clearly, Logan is lying. He's lying about something. So why? There's all these little factoids here. Why lie about any of this if you're totally innocent? Doesn't make sense, does it?
Is extremely important, Barbara.
It is. One of the defense witnesses at trial testified that somebody plugged an auxiliary cable into Libby's phone at 5:32 p.m. after the murders, after the time the state says Richard Allen would have left.
You got that time wrong. It's actually 5:44. 5:44 for the cable being plugged in to Libby's phone. I've got a little timeline here. I'll just show you. I showed you the other day on a live stream, but I'll show you again. Hold on. I'll screenshot it so that I don't have to mess about with. All right. Where's it gone? Why do sometimes you take a screenshot and then it doesn't show up? Doesn't show up on your desktop? Weird. I'll do it again. All right, here we go. Oh, both of them have decided to show up now. All right, so this is based on Libby's phone data that was produced at trial and Ron Logan's phone data, which is in the Ron Logan search warrant. So the FBI study of Ron Logan's phone. So 2:32. Libby's phone stops moving. This is from the Apple Health data. Libby's phone stopped moving, and it was found under Abby's body. Then at 5:44, according to the defense phone expert, headphones were plugged into Libby's phone. 5:44 p.m. The state says that that's either water damage or dirt, but don't explain why there's no questioning of the water damage sensor. iPhone 6S's have a water damage sensor. So if there was water damage in that phone would tell you. But no, none of that. All right. 7:56, Ron Logan's phone is near the crime scene. 10:16, Ron Logan's phone is near the crime scene. Then 10:32 p.m., headphones were removed from Libby's phone. So interesting that Ron Logan's phone is in the vicinity of the crime scene, and then a quarter of an hour later, these headphones are removed from Libby's phone, which is found under Abby's body. I find that very interesting, don't you? So Barbara McDonald got the time a bit wrong, but she was only a little bit out. So it was 5:44 that headphones were plugged in, and then 10:32 that headphones were plugged out.
Left the scene and then removed that auxiliary cable at 10:32 p.m. The FBI said Ron Logan was in the proximity of the crime scene at 10:16. So that definitely does not look like a good fact for Ron.
It doesn't look like a good fact for Ron, does it? But yet, who's in prison for 130 years? Who's in prison for 130 years? Not Ron Logan, is it? No, it's Richard Allen. who the state themselves say left the scene.
Okay, Erica, what else should we be thinking about and talking about here relative to Ron Logan or anyone else that he may or may not be connected to?
So Ron was a staple in that community, and there were a lot of rumors swirling. And you know what? This case is one where people want to talk, but a lot of people don't want to come forward and come on the record. And that's been probably, from my perspective, the most aggravating aspect of this is you can't investigate in a vacuum. You have to go out and talk to people. Well, a lot of my conversations have been trying to convince people to go on the record, to sign an affidavit, to sit down for an interview with lawyers. And it's been very frustrating to get people to take that step because a lot of people in that community are afraid. And that's not a secret to the many hundreds of people, the YouTubers, the journalists, the PIs, the looky-loos, everybody who was really trying to drill down in on this. But, you know, there's also some other stuff that's come out this week. Mike Osbrook, I think, blew a lot of us away when he mentioned on a YouTube the other night, Vinnie, that according to Mike, there were 2 phones in that geofence area that also appeared in the geofence area back in Evansdale, Iowa in 2012 when Lyric and Elizabeth disappeared.
All right, that was a bombshell. That was a bombshell that has gone pretty much under the radar. It's a bombshell. Now, I don't know how Michael Osbrook knows that 2 phones were found in the geofence area at Delphi that were also in the geofence area of Lyric and Elizabeth's murders. Who's Lyric and Elizabeth, I hear you say? Well, I need a lot more information, actually, about this before I'm going to contemplate the possibility that Lyric and Elizabeth's murders are linked with those of Delphi. Lyric and Elizabeth. I did a Crime Story Sunday about Lyric and Elizabeth. Not this year gone, last year. So some of you will know about the Evansdale murders. Some of you won't. So the Evansdale murders. Let me play you a little bit from my Crime Story Sunday episode. So these were 2 little cousins. So it's 2012, July 2012. 2 cousins aged 8 and 10 went for a bike ride. They were staying at their grandma's house. They went for a bike ride, never came home. And then it was about 5 months later, they were found murdered about 20 miles away. Now, I'm just going to play you a little bit from my Crime Story Sunday episode where I talk about Delphi just briefly, because cops in both cases have always said that there's no apparent link between the Delphi murders and Lyric and Elizabeth's murders. But Lyric and Elizabeth's murders, there's virtually nothing about that crime scene. It's very much like Delphi, that the details about Lyric and Elizabeth's murders have been kept under wraps. So we don't know if Lyric and Elizabeth were found with throat slit. We don't know if the crime scene looks similar. We don't know whose phones were at both scenes. Now, one of the things, I'm going to talk about geofencing in a minute, but I really would like more information. So firstly, how does MichelleAfterDark know about the geofencing at Evansdale? How does he know that there was 2 phones found in the geofence at Delphi that were found in the geofence at Evansdale? Also, which scene at Evansdale? Because there's 2 scenes. There's the scene where Lyric and Elizabeth were abducted from, which is Myers Lake in Evansdale. That's where their bikes were found. Their bikes were found dumped in bushes. So they were abducted from one area, but they were found 20 miles away. So is it the geofence from the area where they were abducted, or is it a geofence from the area where they were found? That's also very important. So I'm just going to play you like a minute or so. But it's over on Michelle Walks. Who Murdered the Evansdale Girls? Cold Case Christmas 2023, episode 3. So I can find the bit about Delphi's there. All right. And I'm just going to play you the bit where I say that people have talked about the similarities between them, because 2 girls abducted at the same time. Now, in Evansdale, the girls are younger, 8 and 10, whereas in Delphi, 13 and 14. So the girls are younger, but 2 little girls abducted at the same time. But in Evansdale, they were taken away from the scene. They weren't just dumped in the area where they were last seen. They were dumped 20 miles away. They were found just by hunters, who came across remains and called it in. I'm just going to play a little bit here. Hold on. Been several ongoing criminal investigations, but there's no evidence that drugs or the drug world has anything to do with this case at all. That's just the back end of me saying that one of the girls, I think it was Lyric's dad, was heavily involved in the drug scene. I mean, he's in prison now. I think he got like 90 years or something ridiculous. And one of the theories was that Lyric and Elizabeth were taken by, someone with a grudge, like someone from the drug scene. That's one theory that has done the rounds in the Evansdale murders. There's also been a lot of speculation on social media that this case is somehow linked to the Delphi case, just a few hours away over the border in Delphi, Indiana. Of course, that's the murders of 13-year-old Abby Williams and 14-year-old Liberty German. Lyric being 10 and Elizabeth being 8, there's a bit of an age difference there, but still 2 girls going missing in a safe environment. On the surface, it does seem that the cases are somewhat similar, but both cops in Indiana and those in Iowa have said that there doesn't appear to be any links between the 2 cases. It's been incredibly hard on... All right, so that's what cops have said, but it doesn't mean to say that cops are telling the truth, does it? So again, I'd like to know how MichelleAfterDark knows about the geofence in Evansdale. Now, it is about 4 hours away, so it's hold on, thank you, Sylvia, for being a member for 34 months. I think Stephanie Harlow covered that case. Yeah, quite a few people have covered the Evansdale murders. It's just not it's not very well known. But let's put it this way. I think a lot of YouTubers have covered it, like as a one-off story, like I have. But there's not much discussion about it. It's not a crime that comes up very often in people's, true crime discussion groups or anything like that. It's been pretty much forgotten. Remember, this was July 2012, and it's still unsolved. We're now 2025, so we're coming up for 13 years. It'll be 13 years in July since Lyric and Elizabeth were murdered, and there's no answers at all. No answer. There's no evidence that the cops are any further forward in it than they were at the beginning. But then again, we don't know very much. We don't know anything about the crime scene. We don't know anything about the police investigation. It's just all very quiet. And people have just forgotten about the case. They really have just forgotten about the case. Let me just, I'm sure it's about 4 hours. So it's a fair distance. It's not like just around the corner. I mean, the similarities are that it's two girls abducted and murdered at the same time from very, very quiet, quiet town, little quiet town. Actually, it's 6 hours away. 6 hours. So it's a fair distance, 400 miles. It's a fair distance. So it's interesting if it's true, if what MichelleAfterDark is saying is true, and I've no reason to believe that he's lying in any way, but 2 phones in the geofence at Indiana, in Delphi, are in the geofence. 2 of the same phones are in the geofence in Evansdale. That's a fair distance. It's not like 2 people are, out for a walk and just happen upon, just walk through something that ends up being geofenced in a murder scene. It's 400 miles away. So who was in July of 2012 in Evansdale, Iowa, and then just complete bad luck, that they end up in a geofence in Delphi, Indiana in February of 2017. So it's like 4.5 years different in time, 2012 and 2017. So July 2012 and then February 2017. So 4.5 years, like time difference, and then 400 miles in mileage difference. So 2 phones in a geofence in a crime scene here, in the same situation 4.5 years later, that they end up in a geofence at a crime scene in Delphi, Indiana, 400 miles away. It's insane. It's insane. It's not a coincidence. No, how can it be? How can it be? But like I said, it's an absolute bombshell that MichelleAfterDark has dropped, but I would like more information about it. I really would, because I want to know. I'd like to know whose phones they belong to. Come on, we need to know whose phone they belong to. But even if, Michael knows and he's not going to say, I still would like to know whether the geofence in Evansdale is relating to where the girls were abducted from, which is Myers Lake in Evansdale, versus where they were found, which is 20 miles away. I do have a map here in my video. Hold on, let me find it. Okay. There's Lyric and Elizabeth. Where's my map gone? It's a half-an-hour drive, 19.9 miles from Evansdale, and then it was Seven Bridges Wildlife Area. I couldn't remember the name of the place where they were found, but very, very rural. I'll look that up on the map now. Seven Bridges Wildlife Area. I couldn't remember the name of it. So I had to go back to my video. Where's my thingy disappeared to? Why has my thingy disappeared? Why are you not showing me my thing? Hold on. Stop being stupid. All right, go out and come back in. All right, there we go. Oh, I've got rid of it again. It's because I'm so zoomed in. All right, we'll zoom out. We'll zoom out of that. All right, we're fine now. So 7 bridges, wildlife area. All right, here. The bodies were found somewhere in here. Like, so it's like a park, very rural, like in the wilds. Don't know exactly where they were found in this vicinity. So that's where the road is. Let me see if we can go down to the... Don't know if it'll even let me go down to the road. No, even the Google car. The Google car hasn't gone down there, which is annoying. So not much more than a track. So they were found somewhere in here. So it's a pretty large area. So we got a river. Be interested if they were found like the banks of a river with the throat slit. That would be very concerning. So were the girls murdered somewhere else and then just dumped here? Or were they taken here and then murdered? We don't know. We absolutely don't know. Yeah, Michael talked about it in Case by Case live stream The Underground. 221. Let's go to it. For those who didn't hear it. I did listen to it. Actually, I did watch it. And I have not heard anyone else talk about it. I'm sure they have. I'm sure they have. But Case by Case. Oops, spelled it wrong. Can't even spell case right. Here we go. She's really good. There she is. She's been doing some really good stuff. So Case by Case. It's like Case cross X Case. Go and subscribe. I've given her a few shout outs. So it's this one 12 days ago, 2 hours 21.
Shoot her from the beginning.
What was it? 10:30 something.
10:23.
All right, so we've backed it up just a couple of minutes. Another bridge area. Yeah, I don't know whether they're actually like it's just called 7 Bridges Wildlife Area. So I don't know how many bridges. You can't really tell. Again, I don't know exactly where in this park. It's pretty big. It's like a place where people hunt. And 2 hunters just came along and found human remains. And DNA testing proved that it was Lyric and Elizabeth. But we have very little details about their case. We don't know how they were murdered. We don't know whether it's likely that the girls were murdered elsewhere and then this is just a dumping ground, or whether the girls were taken here and murdered. If so, I want to know, were they near the river? Is there a bridge in the vicinity? It's called 7 Bridges Wildlife Area. Were they near a bridge? Were they near a river? These things have significance. I don't know. All right, let's listen to this. So this is Case by Case. I'll put the link to this in the description box afterwards. The link is here in the chat as well. There you go. So it's from 12 days ago. So I've backed it up just a couple of minutes so that you get a little bit of context.
Yeah, I believe. I think
Okay.
Rick keeps saying 10:32, but I think it was 10:23.
So this phone jack is unplugged, and Ron Logan's cell phone.
So it was 10:32. 10:32 that the headphone jack was unplugged.
Pings very near the crime scene at 10:16. Then this phone jack is unplugged at 10:23.
No, 10:32. It's 10:32. Definitely 10:32 that it's unplugged.
So if the phone jack being plugged in and unplugged is a result of water damage, why? So we're just going to assume that at 10:23 the condensation in this jack just like evaporated and the phone started working again. Why did it take until 4 something in the morning for all of those messages to come in at once?
Yeah. Why did all of those messages come in at 4:30, or was it 4:33 a.m.? Doesn't make sense. I know people have talked about the numbers between. I get it. Let me just show you what I'm talking about here. Just seeing it in the chat. Like the dates of the murders. Now, I don't go in for like numerology and stuff like that. It's just an interesting little bit of the two cases, though, that you've got Abby and Libby murdered on 2/13/17, and then you've got Lyric and Elizabeth murdered at 7/13/12. It's kind of interesting. You've got like the same numbers involved. I'd have been more interested in that if it was exactly the same like day of if they were both in February or both in July. I'd have been more interested. But yeah, it is something that I know people have talked about, and it is interesting. I have to say it is interesting.
So
Yeah. And it was not. I believe at 10:23. So the last connection with the tower was at 5:45 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And then it connects with the tower again at 4:33. Yeah,
Right.
I don't know.
So the connection to the tower. So this is Libby's phone. The connection to the tower. The last connection with the tower was 5:44 p.m. So it was in exactly the same minute that the headphone jack was plugged in. And then it doesn't connect to the tower again until 4:33 when a bunch of messages come in. 4:33 a.m. the following day. It's bizarre.
I don't know what's going on with that phone. And I'm looking into whether, just taking I got to say, I got to hope that Nick McClellan did not simply make up the battery thing. But I can tell you that nobody on the defense, I've been asking, and nobody on the defense side has ever heard anything about the battery.
Well, yeah, he said that, but see, and that's another thing that when he made those statements and his response, because Reese said that when they came out there and spoke to him, he said it was literally a joke. He thought he was going to go in and sit down and like man to man tell them what he knew. And they came in with some paper and they said, give us what you got in 2 paragraphs. And he said, how can I tell you 3 months of confessions in 2 paragraphs? Do your best.
When did Ron Logan go to prison on the probation violation?
He was arrested on March 16th of 2017. The search warrant was served on his property the very next day, according to.
She's correct. She's absolutely correct that he went back to prison on probation violation. This is Ron Logan. Went back to prison on probation violation, March, and then the very day after, this search warrant was served. We've got a date here. 17th of March, 2017. This search warrant was served. And the affiant was Nicole Robertson, who is an FBI special agent. So the FBI were really going hard on Ron Logan. And then it all fizzled out. It all fizzled out.
Parisi, while he was in there, he was stating that Nick McClelland, prior to him becoming, getting elected to be the prosecutor, was telling his Ron Logan's family that if he got elected, he was going to modify Logan's sentence.
That's absolutely true. And it's interesting, as I talked about the other day, that Nick McClelland was elected as prosecuting attorney in December of 2017, and Ron Logan was released from prison just a month later and allowed to serve his sentence at home, you know, on a tag. Isn't that interesting?
Nick McClelland took office January 1st, and on January 9th, Ron Logan had a hearing for his sentence to be modified.
Yeah. Look, I mean, let's just assume everybody's on the up and up. I mean, I don't think that the people who've obviously lied to me, like anybody who says those sticks were just there to cover the girls, and the old bridge guy and young bridge guy are the same person. Those are obvious lies. But let's give McClelland the benefit of the doubt here. Something it pains me to do, but it's kind of the way I work. And the fact of the matter is, he should have just disqualified it. He should have gotten a special prosecutor from the beginning. Look at all the connections you've made between various people there. It's a small town. There are all kinds of coincidences. I mean, you know, what are the odds that two people who probably don't know each other and almost certainly aren't involved, two people in Delphi were in Evansdale in 2012 when those murders happened?
Oh, who's that, Michael? Who's that?
Not saying.
Oh my God, Mike. So it does sound like he maybe does know by the way you laughed.
God, oh my gosh, that's a whole nother flipping can of worms.
Well, I'm using it. I mean, it's just like, I mean, it gets worse because one of the people who was in Evansdale at the time, phone goes offline at about 2:15 in the afternoon and doesn't come back online until about 8:30 the next morning.
That's in Evansdale?
No, that's in Delphi.
Oh.
But that's one of the people who was in Evansdale in 2012. Their phone on the 13th goes offline a little after 2 and comes back online at 8:30 in the morning.
I'm writing this down.
That's insane. That is insane.
Oh. Good Lord. When the phone comes back on at 8:30 in the morning, where is the phone?
Good question. I don't know.
But he doesn't mention geofencing, does he? Just says was in Evansdale. So two of the phones that were in the vicinity in Delphi in 2017 turn up or were in Evansdale in 2012. One of them, who was in Evansdale in 2012, and then who was in Delphi in 2017, Their phone goes off at 2:15 in the afternoon and comes back on 8:30 the following day. But it doesn't mention specifically geofencing. Wasn't Messer connected to Evansdale and one of the girls' families? I don't know.
Well, I have a lot of, there's been a lot of people. Go ahead.
No, but the story, and I think it was checked out. And the story is that he wasn't at work because he was sick, went to sleep, and turned his phone off and got up the next morning better and turned it on. And maybe. But my point about this is not that I'm trying to accuse this person. It seems, from what I know, it seems incredibly unlikely. I mean, he lives a mile from a mile as the crow flies from the crime scene.
A mile as the crow flies from the crime scene. Is he talking about Westfall? Is he talking about Westfall? I assume he means Delphi. Because he's talking about the person whose phone was turned off. He's talking about Pat Brown. He's talking about Pat Brown, is he? It's not Brad Holder. Brad Holder doesn't live in Delphi. He lived in Logansport. Pat Brown. Well, Pat Brown was one of the ones who found the girls, supposedly. Wasn't he the one that testified at the trial? Pat Brown is a local. He's a local in Delphi. He was part of the search party, and he was in one of the search parties that found the girls. And I'm sure he's the one that testified at the trial to say that he found the girls. How old is Pat Brown? Is Pat Brown a hunter? I don't know the answer to that. Westfall lives about the time of the murders. Westfall did live in Delphi, but it was over the other side of Delphi. So I think it's more like 3 miles rather than 1 mile. Or as the crow flies, it's going to be less, but I think it's 3 miles driving. Yeah, I thought he was talking about Westfall, but Pat Brown, there's never been any indication that Pat Brown was involved in the murders. Who had the ATM machines? That was Brad Weber. Lost his keys on Ron Logan's property at an inconvenient time. Look, if it was Pat Brown, then Pat Brown was in the area during the search for the girls because he was part of the search parties. So could it be a complete coincidence that his phone was in Evansdale in 2012? And we absolutely need to know whether he's talking about a geofence. Like, he's not mentioned geofencing once. He's mentioned the towns rather than the because it's very different to talk about the town, like you just happened to be in Evansdale in 2012 and then in Delphi, Indiana in 2017 is very different than saying these phones were in the geofence. Do you understand? Right. Does Pat Brown have ties to Evansdale? I don't know. It's only people in the chat saying that he's talking about Pat Brown. Let's carry on a bit more.
But this is a small town. there's lots of meth flying around. There are lots of people doing underhanded things, criminal things. And
Well, I'm just going to come out and say it because I can.
Huh?
But you know, for the past 2 years, I have been in and out of Delphi multiple times, talked to a lot of people from a lot of different aspects of groups. And I know that Nick McClelland and his family, not so much Nick, but the rest of his family does not have a clean record. And prior to becoming prosecutor, Nick McClelland was known for driving around the area. He had a party bus. And he used to drive around and had all different kinds of people hanging out with him. So all of these extra little favors and all of those things, it's not speculation. Those things did happen. Lead with love. Thank you so much for gifting 20 memberships.
Nick McClelland had a party bus. Well, Nick McClelland's dad was a wrong un. Nick McClelland's dad was Nick McClelland's dad done for arson or something? It was pretty serious anyway. Yeah, meth. Look, in Lyric and Elizabeth's murders, I think it's Lyric's dad. Correct me if I think it's Lyric's dad, Dan, who I'm gonna look it up. I'm not gonna say the wrong thing. All right, so I'll spell his name. All right, this is from 2012. So this is from just a few days after. So the girls were still missing. Girls may have been abducted by drug lords who Dan Morrissey, father of Lyric Cook, dobbed into police. So that was, I think, probably the main theory. But they've never been able to actually tie any of these, drug dealers in the area to the girls' murders. The murders have gone unsolved for, 12 years. It's going to be 13 years in July. But this was the main theory. And Dan Morrissey, Lyric's dad, is in prison now for, I think, something like 90 years. Like Lyric and Elizabeth were first cousins. Their mothers were sisters. And Lyric's mother, she was also into drugs, but not like Dan. Dan was like dealing. Dan was bad. And he's now in prison for a very long time. So Dan knocked on a bunch of people, grandmother Wilma Cook said. Investigators searching Morrissey's phone contacts. Morrissey's trial for beating his wife and making and selling meth delayed until August 28th. Can't understand why recent events may have had your mind and attention on matters other than preparing for trial, judge said today. Grainy video suggests girls were abducted and did not drown in the lake. Well, we know that they didn't drown. We know that they searched that lake thinking, because the girls' bikes were found like in the bushes near the lake, and they thought that the girls had gone in for a swim and had drowned, but no. 5 months later, in December of 2012, their bodies were found 20 miles away in Seven Bridges Wildlife Reserve. So there he is, Dan Morrissey. Missing Iowa cousins could have been abducted by drug dealers as payback after one of the girl's fathers snitched to police. So this is according to Grandma, Wilma Cook. Dan narked on a bunch of people. Everybody knows that. Mr. Morrissey, 36, is due to stand trial for multiple charges of meth possession, making and delivering, and for beating his estranged wife. So he did go down. He went down for a long time. So expected to accept a plea agreement. He got a long time. FBI spokeswoman Sandy Brute said investigators were aware of Mr. Morris's plea negotiations, but that she could not comment. Black Hawk County Sheriff Tony Thompson said on Friday that investigators were casting a wide net as they chase leads in the case. All right. So they were murdered. They didn't drown in the lake. They were murdered. And the main theory as to why they were murdered focuses around meth. However, we don't know how those little girls died. We've never been told how those little girls died. So were they murdered like as some kind of sexual crime? Was it more a ritual thing, or was it a payback? Until we know how those little girls were murdered, I don't know how much further we can go with this as a potential link to the Delphi murders. But one thing that is absolutely clear is that Lyric and Elizabeth's bodies were dumped a considerable way away from where they were abducted. So it's kind of different to Delphi, different ages, and like the circumstances surrounding the murders is a little bit different as well. But at the end of the day, this area, you know, if you're thinking about the symbology of it, banks of a river, 7 Bridges Wildlife Reserve. It's interesting, isn't it? It's very interesting. But Michael Osbrook doesn't specifically mention geofence. He mentions Evansdale in 2012, but doesn't mention the geofence, unless he does later. But Nick McClelland mentioned the geofence, because one of the things that Nick McClelland got banned from the trial was the geofence. On April 29th, 2024, the state of Indiana filed a motion in limine seeking to limit various forms of evidence in this cause. Specifically, the motion sought limitations on the defense's ability to introduce evidence of third-party culpability regarding the following individuals. And these were the things, and Judge Gull banned these in their entirety and said they couldn't talk about them because there was no nexus. No nexus. Odinism, cult or ritualistic killing, Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, Johnny Messer, Elvis Fields, Ned Smith, Rod Abrams, Kegan Kline, Jerry Klein, who is Tony Klein, Kegan's dad, and Ron Logan. So I was confused when I read this list because the defense had never talked about Kegan Kline, Jerry Klein, or Ron Logan. Their theory, their third-party suspect theory, was all based around the Ordinists and these characters here. So it's interesting that Nick McClelland wanted Ron Logan gone. Also wanted gone the records generated by former police officer Todd Click. And that's understandable, because if you ban the ordinists, then you're not going to talk about Todd Click anyway, because Todd Click's investigation was all around these ordinists. Thank you, Jennifer, for the $1.99. Yeah, hit that like button. Hit that like button. And subscribe. If you're listening to this channel and you like my stuff, please do subscribe. It's completely free. I'm trying to get to 100k subscribers by the end of this year. I think it's doable. So if you listen and you're not subscribed, just click that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you a thing. All right. Okay. But also, he wanted the geofencing records banned. Why? And this puzzled me more than anything. This puzzled me more than anything. I was understanding as to why Nick McClean would want ordinism and these ordinists banned from the trial. Because, bringing in a third-party theory, it's going to confuse the jury. It's going to give them tons of reasonable doubt. It's understandable that Nick McClean would want that gone. It's probably understandable that he'd also want any other persons of interest gone. But why the geofence? Because the geofencing data was generated by the state of Indiana. Why would they want the geofence gone? Why? Why would they want the geofence gone? Well, this is one of the motions this is a defense motion from March of 2024. So I talked about it in this video. Richard Allen was not at the Delphi crime scene when Abby and Libby were murdered. Because my thought at the time when this came out was, so this was a motion to, let me just have a look. Well, this was a motion to compel and request for sanctions. This was about discovery not being turned over. Right? This is what this motion was about. This was March 2024. And then a month later, Nick McClean files his motion in limine to get geofencing banned from the trial, which was successful. So the jury never heard anything about the geofence at the trial. But this is the information that we heard about. So in the pre-trial motions, the defense talked about the geofence. The geofencing evidence was received nearly 10 months after the state was required to turn it over and contained what appeared to be highly exculpatory evidence concerning a variety of important matters, including the phone numbers of multiple people who appear to have either been at the crime scene or within 60 to 100 yards of the crime scene during the very times when the victims were purportedly being murdered, according to the state's timeline provided in the probable cause affidavit. Why does he want this banned? And I thought, well, it's because Rick Allen's phone wasn't in the geofence. Rick Allen's phone wasn't there at the time when the state alleges the girls were murdered. And again, we don't know exactly when the girls were murdered because the medical examiner didn't give a time of death. Okay. In this late discovery, the defense found a map prepared by someone, presumably law enforcement, so no name on it, just a map, that appears to track the movements of these people in and around the crime scene the afternoon of, that should say, February 13th, not December. I'm being lazy here. Like looking at one of my old videos rather than finding the motion. All right. All right. So, including between 3:02 p.m. and 3:27 p.m. are very near the location, within 60 to 100 yards of where the bodies were ultimately found the following day. So in this video, I talked about, well, why 3:02 to 3:27? Why those times? So it appears that this geofencing map follows these people around in the vicinity of the crime scene. Now, 100 yards, though, that would take you from the crime scene to the bridge. So some of these people would have been just there walking. You know, we know that there was a bunch of people there that afternoon. You know, we heard from some of them at the trial. There was just a bunch of people going for a walk in an unseasonably warm day. But because we know there was a whole bunch of people there, yes, a lot of cell phones would have been caught in the geofence. However, if there was that many phones close by, why did nobody hear anything? Why did nobody hear anything? So a geofence is, it's like an imaginary boundary around a particular location, and then it can track the phones that enter that location. Like a lot of businesses and shops have geofences. Have you ever been through a city and then you're walking past a business or a shop or something like that, and you get a text like about that shop? Well, that's because that location is geofenced. So they can use geofencing at crime scenes to track certain phones within a specified vicinity. Why would it be excluded? Exactly. Because presumably tracking these phones through this geofence was a way to find out who was there. So you should be able to exclude targeted advertising. Thank you. I knew there was a name for it. You should be able, as law enforcement, you should be able to find out who all of these phones belong to, interview them, and also exclude them from your inquiry. So there was Cheyenne, there was the couple there was Dave McCain, there was a bunch of people there in the 3 o'clock hour. So you can exclude all of those people by finding their phone in the geofence and then finding when they leave the geofence. So you know that that person has been to the trails and has left. And then any phones that remain that are, you know, untrackable, if you will, like you don't know who they belong to, you can't find where they go. Well, did they turn the phone off? What happened to that person? You know how many people potentially were there with a phone on at some point during that afternoon. And then you know how many people you still need to question. So it's a very useful piece of information for law enforcement, certainly in the initial stages of a crime, where you're trying to work out how many people were in a particular location. And it also tells you who wasn't there. So my question is, obviously, Rick Allen's phone wasn't there, or else why would Nick want to exclude it? Because if Rick Allen's phone was in the geofence, he'd be shouting that from the rooftop. So Rick Allen's phone wasn't in the geofence. But my question is this: why did Nick McClelland want it excluded altogether? Is it that Nick McClelland wanted to silence any discussion at the trial because perhaps one or more of these people that he sought to exclude, actually, they were in the geofence and he didn't want that mentioned. You have to ask the question. You have to ask the question. Were there one or more of these people in that geofence at the time when the state said the murders took place? If they were, well, there's your nexus. There's your nexus. We know for a fact Ron Logan's phone would have been in that geofence. We know for a fact that phone would have been in the geofence. How do we know that? From the FBI. We know that from the FBI because this is the search warrant that Nicole Robertson, special agent, wrote on March 17th. This is the FBI's investigation into Ron Logan. We know that Ron Logan was in the vicinity at 2:09 p.m. We know. A call placed using Logan's cell phone produced cell tower data that shows Logan's cell phone appears to be in or around his property on February 13th, 2017 at 2:09. Although his exact location cannot be confirmed, the tower data shows that Logan's cell phone was in Delphi in the area of the Monon High Bridge at 2:09. What does connection mean? A connection. So Judge Gull said that the defense couldn't talk about these people, Brad Holder, Patrick Westphal, Johnny Messer, Elvis Fields, Ned Smith, Rod Abrams, Ken Klein, Jerry Klein, or Ron Logan, because there was no nexus or no connection to link them with the crime. But Ron Logan's phone was in that, he would have been in that geofence. That phone would have been in the geofence, and therefore that's your nexus. That's your nexus for including at least one of these people that Nick McClelland wanted gone from the trial. Why does Nick McClelland want Ron Logan gone from the trial, even though there is more evidence against Ron Logan than there is about Rick Allen? Why does he want him gone? Because he promised to protect Ron Logan. He promised to protect Ron Logan. And the proof is Ron Logan was taken from prison and allowed to serve his sentence at home within a month of Nick McClelland taking office as the prosecuting attorney. I rest my case. Nick McClelland was too close to the people in Delphi. I've said this all along. Nick McClelland was too close. He's got ties to the family. He's related by marriage to the German family. Nick McClelland's aunt is married to Brad German, who is Libby's granddad. It's too close. They should have brought in a special prosecutor who had absolutely no connections to Delphi, you know, regardless of whether it's true that Nick McClelland had a party bus, right? He's so close to those people in that area. And that means that you can never be sure that the decisions he's making are sound legal decisions, or whether he's protecting people. It just all makes you think he's protecting people because he knows them. He's friends with them. His family's friends with them. Thank you, Paper Chaser, member for 28 months. What connection does Nick McClelland have to Iowa? I have no idea. So I think Nick McClelland, he put this motion in limine in, knowing that Judge Gull would grant it, So not only to exclude these named persons, but also take out any possible nexus that the defence might find. And one of those possible nexuses, nexi, is the geofence. Ron Logan's phone would have been in the geofence, the vicinity of the crime scene, at the time when the state alleges the girls were murdered. We know that Ron Logan's phone would have been in that geofence. And it was trackable. We know that that geofencing involved tracking those phones moving around. There's a bit more on that as well. So requested by email that the state of Indiana provide all narrative reports relating to the geofence data, as well as all documents related to geofence data, but the state of Indiana so far has claimed that no such documents exist. So this is yet another thing that the state of Indiana has said either doesn't exist or basically, no, you can't have it. We're going to ban it. And Judge Gull has gone along with it. I don't know what else to tell you. I don't know what else to tell you. That Nick McClelland, his case was protected by a corrupt judge, and Nick McClelland, in turn, has protected the people that he's got, ties with in Delphi. Richard Allen was chosen as somebody who kept himself to himself, just went about his little life, looking after his family, doing his job at CVS. He didn't have the connections with Nick McClelland. He didn't have the connections that other people had. So therefore, he was the perfect fall guy. He was the guy who admitted that he was there. And look, he's a middle-aged guy. He looks a little bit like Bridge Guy. He admits to wearing similar clothes to Bridge Guy, even though probably the majority of middle-aged guys wear the same kind of clothes in that area. So he's the perfect fall guy. He's the perfect patsy. And it lets everybody off the hook. A failed, really rubbish investigation. It lets all of those people off who did really badly at investigating in the early days. It gives them the show trial that they need. It gives Tony Liggett his leg up into the sheriff's office. It works out beautifully for all of them. But they had to go through with it. Once Rick Allen was arrested, they had to go through with it. They put him in Westville, hoping that he would just confess and that would be done and he would plead guilty. But no, he didn't. So they had to turn the thumb screws up. They had to torture him. They got their show trial. They got their conviction because the judge was corrupt, supported Nick McClelland in every which way she could. And the jury only saw a very small amount of the evidence. If they'd had a special prosecutor with no ties to Delphi and a fair judge, I believe Richard Allen would be a free man right now. I truly believe there was that much evidence against other people. There is no way that a jury would say beyond a reasonable doubt that this man here, Richard Allen, is guilty. The jury were given a very, very narrow view of this case. There is so much more. There is so much more still to come out. I'm scared for Reese Davis at this moment in time. I'm scared for Rick Allen, but I'm also scared for Reese Davis. I think they'll probably try to put the thumb screws on him to stop him talking. He said too much already. They're going to stop him. I'm scared for Reese Davis right now. So there you go. Anyhow, I'm going to call it here. We've gone 2 hours. I'm going to call it here so that it's watchable on the replay. And yeah, let's just keep going with it. Let's just keep going with it. So thank you all for joining me. Hope you got something out of this. It's certainly a head scratcher, and you know, the more connections you put together, the more you start to maybe see the light a little bit. Anyhow, thank you mods, as always. Thank you to those that donated earlier on in the live stream. I think I thanked everybody. So we've got Krista, Joanne, Jennifer, and we've got no new members. Okay, good stuff. All right, thank you all. I shall see you tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to lead us out with the good old tune here. Bye for now.
It's time for you guys to start being journalists.
Before an angry Andrew Baldwin left the courthouse, 13 News overheard him speaking to Richard Allen's wife, saying, "It ain't over. The world's watching. The world sees what's going on."